Football is evolving, with many young players in the spotlight, and many older stars continue to shine. But there are some who mysteriously vanished in 2024. So that begs the question, where did they go? Here are 10 players we grew up watching but faded from the footballing stage. And wait till you see the time Neymar went missing, came back, and disappeared again? Once celebrated as one of the most intelligent midfielders of his generation, Juan Mata has quietly drifted away in 2024. You would be forgiven for thinking he had retired ever since Vissel Kobe. But believe it or not, he's still playing professional football. Mata reached his peak during his spells at Chelsea and United, where he won the league, Champions League, and Europa League. After leaving Old Trafford, he ventured into less competitive leagues. While his ability to dictate play was never in question, age has caught up with the 35-year-old. It was undoubtedly his age that took him away from the limelight, but even if he can't run as fast as he once could, his creativity and vision still exists. He is now playing for the Western Sydney Wanderers in Australia, and honestly, he's probably one of the best players there. Mata's issue was age, but this next player is still pretty young to be disappearing. Once hailed as one of the brightest prospects in European football, Donny van de Beek's career was massively affected after an unfortunate move to England. A key figure in Ajax's incredible 2018-19 Champions League run, Van de Beek was expected to thrive when he joined Manchester United in 2020. However, his time at Old Trafford has been plagued by limited playing opportunities, injuries, and a lack of confidence. Ever since leaving Manchester, he hasn't really been in the news. But he now gets to play regularly for Girona, and they're in the Champions League, so it's far better than his previous clubs. It's just difficult to see how the former Ajax's golden boy had such a horrible time in recent years. But if you think Van de Beek's downfall was sad, Anthony Martial's decline came as a tragedy to pretty much everyone. Martial burst onto the scene in 2015 with a stunning debut goal for Manchester United against Liverpool. At just 19, he was labeled the future of French football, combining speed, skill, and composure. But he couldn't keep up the good work. Plagued by injuries and inconsistency, Martial struggled to cement his place in United's squad, often finding himself sidelined or used sparingly. He was forced to move away from United in search of game time, and now plays for AEK Athens in Greece. I think he's just another victim of the shaky management at United. While others did just enough to stay at the club, Martial couldn't survive, and he's only 29. Speaking of survival, Mario Balotelli has always been a name synonymous with flair, controversy, and unpredictability. From his days at Inter Milan to Manchester City and his infamous "Why always me" celebration, Mario was always in the spotlight. He then moved to Liverpool and Nice for 2 to 3 years in each club, but after that, he was forgotten. Now, this is strange because if you take a look at his career path, he's been moving clubs every single year. Reports of his new club would have surfaced on the internet, just like how our videos would appear when a new content is up, if you like and subscribe and turn on notifications to our channel. The start of the European leagues in the middle of the year saw Balotelli without a club, but in October of 2024, he finally found a home back in Italy, Genoa to be particular. Xherdan Shaqiri was always a name for Switzerland, and when he went to Stoke City, eyebrows were raised. But he was such a talent that sooner or later he would end up in a top club, and true enough, Liverpool came knocking on the doors. He won the league and Champions League with Liverpool, but with Mané, Firmino, and Salah getting most of the game time, Shaqiri, in search of more minutes, chose to go elsewhere. Shaqiri moved to the MLS in 2022, joining the Chicago Fire. but his performances have failed to reignite the magic he was once known for. In 2024, his presence on the international and club stages has dwindled further, leaving fans questioning his long-term future. And today, he's back where it all started, FC Basel. But Shaqiri's best years were already behind him. Just like this next player. A World Cup winning captain and one of the most reliable goalkeepers of the last decade, Hugo Lloris was never a clear-cut best goalkeeper in the world, but he was always in the conversation. The former Tottenham Hotspur stalwart left the club in 2023 after a long and illustrious tenure, but his next steps have been less noticeable. To be fair, it was a move that screamed retirement, but for a keeper who has achieved so much, just forgetting about him feels disrespectful. He's now playing in the MLS for LAFC, and as with all keepers, age hasn't affected him a whole lot. Lloris is still a very dominant keeper, but he must be considering retirement by now. This next guy, though, still has a few years in him. Once a reliable player for Barcelona, Sergi Roberto is now 32 and playing in a team you have probably never heard of until recently. Known for his versatility, Roberto was a useful squad player during Barcelona's golden years, contributing to their domestic and European success. And who would have forgotten this iconic goal he scored for Barcelona back then?
It's Neymar trying to feed it through. It's a stretch and it's in. And I can't remember the last time I saw something like this. Extraordinary scene.
Yes, he is the guy who scored the killer blow to PSG in this 6-1 victory in the Champions League. But he wasn't going to follow in the footsteps of Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, or Gary Neville. That is, to only represent a club in their playing career. Because Sergi Roberto now plays in Italy, for Como, under Cesc Fabregas. His time at Barca was riddled with injuries, and for a club already struggling to find a good right back, Roberto just wasn't the right fit. But Sergi Roberto's injuries weren't as bad as this next player. Ames Rodriguez's career has been a tale of highs and lows. The Colombian playmaker rose to global fame after his sensational 2014 World Cup, earning him a big move to Real Madrid. However, inconsistency and injuries prevented him from reaching the heights many expected. He was forced to try elsewhere, and did pretty well at Everton initially, before having to move on as well. In recent years, Ames has struggled to find a stable home, moving between clubs in Europe and the Middle East. In 2024, his name was largely absent from major footballing conversations. Even though he's playing for Rayo Vallecano now, he's only managed a handful of appearances so far. The guy was supposed to be a club legend for Real Madrid, but it turned out to be a nightmare. But it wasn't as scary a nightmare as the one Phil Coutinho had to live through. The darling of Liverpool during the Jurgen Klopp era, fans would have built a statue for him if he was still playing in England. Game after game, even for the neutrals, he was a joy to watch. He could have been a legend, but he wasn't patient. Imagine seeing Coutinho lifting these titles if he wasn't hungry for a move. Barcelona signed him as a star player, but sadly, it didn't work out as he had imagined, and he eventually became just another player on Barca's bench. Multiple loan moves followed, and even though he plays for Vasco da Gama now, he is still on loan from Aston Villa. And why was he moving to Barca? Because a certain Neymar Jr. was going to Paris for a world record transfer fee, which, by the way, is still the highest fee anyone has ever paid for a player. He was dubbed a future Ballon d'Or winner his time at Barca, but every time PSG failed in the Champions League, Neymar failed to bring the Ballon d'Or home, which was every season. We know he plays for Al Hilal now, but he's disappeared for two reasons. The first, we all know why. A serious knee injury in October of 2023 resulted in Neymar only managing 3 appearances for Al Hilal. But did you also know that the other reason he disappeared was because Al Hilal deregistered him for the league to free up one of the 8 foreign roster spots? He came back for 2 games recently in the Asian Champions League, but got injured again, and we all be hoping that he doesn't disappear forever. And you shouldn't be disappearing as well, because we got more coming your way, and I'll see you there.